Hi everybody and welcome back to another sports video. I mean, wow. What a fight that was last night between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Now, as we know, it's actually the third time that they've fought, the previous time being in December 2018 and the second time being in February 2020. And this is the third fight that concludes a trilogy that is somewhat redefined boxing in many ways, really. And the difference between watching Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, one's a fantastic puncher while the other is a very good boxer. So that's why it really kind of reveals in many ways the difference between them and what constitutes a really good fighter. So just to give a little bit of context around this third fight, of course Tyson Fury won emphatically in the second fight and Deontay Wilder was entitled to a third fight against him to invoke in his rematch clause. There was a lot of attention surrounding a potential bout between Tyson Fury and, at the time, unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. Unfortunately, it fell through where Wilder won the arbitration and the rematch was ordered for at some point in the autumn, which of course is what we have. I think a lot of people were frustrated about the fact that we got a third fight when we didn't necessarily need or even cared about having one, because Fury won so emphatically in the second fight and he arguably won the first fight even though it was actually a draw. The fact that the two previous fights were both fantastic, we all kind of had something at the back of our minds that this third fight and the finale, I guess if you want to call it that, would be a classic, and my gosh, it truly was. I would probably go as far as say it's probably the greatest boxing fight I have probably ever watched in my entire life. That's how good it was. It just had absolutely everything in it, everything that you could possibly want in a boxing fight. And when you think about expectation and drama surrounding fights, it really had the ingredients that showed the heavyweight division at another peak, and it concluded a trilogy for the ages. And going into this fight, you would think that Tyson Fury was the obvious favourite and that Wilder was going to lose again. That Tyson Fury showed a whole new side to him in the second fight. He showed a lot more power and he showed a lot more attack, and you kind of expected the same thing to happen in this fight. Whereas with Wilder, a lot of people perceive Wilder as this one-trick pony who just has knockout power and that's it. It was a time to really come out of his shell and show what he can do, not as a puncher, but as a boxer. And as the fight started, you really saw a new side to Wilder that we haven't seen. Within the first few seconds, he was just jabbing away, and he was starting to try and outbox Tyson Fury, getting behind his jab a lot more, trying to force the pace of the fight, getting him on the back foot. That really changed in the third round when Fury knocked him down, and we thought it's going to happen again, because in the last fight, Fury knocked him down in the third round. We anticipated that it was going to be the end at that point, but that was just the beginning of all the drama that happened in the fight, because of course in the fourth one Fury went down twice, and I think at that point everybody's hearts just dropped, because we thought, oh my gosh, he's going to lose here. I think from how I perceive Tyson Fury, if he lost that fight last night, I would have genuinely worried for him mentally because of the journey that he's had, and I'll talk about that a bit later on. But that being said, he came back, and then in the fifth and sixth rounds he started to find his feet again. He started to force the pace on Wilder, and I think at that point Wilder had run out of steam, he ran out of gas, and that's what I think led to his downfall, really. You saw that as the rounds carried on, and in fairness to Wilder, it was astonishing how he carried on going, because it probably should have ended 2-3 rounds before it actually did. He showed his heart and his determination to still stay in there with a big guy like Tyson Fury, who was coming at him all the time, throwing hooks, jabs, uppercuts even, and all those things, you know. But at the end of the day, he's just not on the same level as Tyson Fury as a boxer. Maybe as a puncher in terms of power, as he has proved in his record over the years, but as a boxer, that's what it comes down to. And the 10th round, when he knocked him down as well, we thought, yeah, it's going to happen any second now. He was going to get knocked out, but he managed to survive another round, and then of course in the 11th round he suffered that brutal knockout. It almost like he was knocked out on his feet before he'd even hit the canvas. And in a way, because Wilder, in my opinion, did not accept at all, he lost the second fight to Tyson Fury, hence all the excuses, which was utter rubbish, by the way. He just couldn't accept that he'd lost to the better man. And I get that you're upset and you're frustrated and you're angry because you've lost your very first fight after having such a fantastic record, but at the end of the day, you're a sportsman. If you lose to the better fighter, then acknowledge that. In a way, a bit like how Anthony Joshua has when he first lost to Andy Ruiz and has most recently lost to Alexander Usyk. You know, he just turned around and said, I wasn't as good, I lost to the better fighter, I will be better next time. And that's how you learn as a sportsman. But Wilder, if he handled it like that, he would have more fans and people would appreciate him more as a fighter. He just doesn't, and I don't know where he's going to go now after this. I really don't. I wouldn't actually be surprised if he just calls it quits and retires now. I don't think he's got nothing left to prove, because I think he's an absolutely incredible fighter. You've seen his record. He's an incredible fighter, for his knockouts anyway. But in terms of being at that elite champion level, he's been exposed, and sometimes as a sportsman you've got to take it on the chin and accept that. And I've just lost a lot of respect for Wilder, because at the end of the day he blamed his trainer, he blamed the water, he blamed his suit, which by the way looked pretty much like Sauron from Lord of the Rings. I probably missed out a large number of excuses that he came out with, and he just lost, plain and simple, to the better man. And that's what, as I said, as a sportsman you just have to sit back and accept. But as for Tyson Fury though, I will say it wasn't necessarily the greatest performance from him that I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying that because of the knockdowns that he endured, but I just think his technique lacked slightly in this fight, particularly in comparison to the second fight, where he was forcing Wilder on the back foot, he was moving in and out, and you know, his movement was a lot better in the second fight. But I think it's because he was a lot more cagey in this one. But I just think Tyson Fury's IQ as a boxer is just a whole new level, far above everybody else, maybe other than Alexander Usyk, than any other heavyweight in the division at the moment. That's what I think the difference is. He's just so transparent, he's got tricks up his sleeve, and he knows how to respond to a knockdown, how to respond to a punch, and he can give a punch as well. And I think in that fight it just proved the difference between being a strong elite fighter and a great heavyweight fighter. He cemented his place among the greatest heavyweights of all time, and it will be interesting to see where he goes from here, Tyson Fury, because of course his WBC mandatory challenger is British heavyweight rival Dillian Whyte, but we all want that unification bout with Alexander Usyk, yet we still want the anticipated fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Whether that will happen or not at all, I don't know. I think this is what I think will happen. Whyte will get past his next opponent in October, who fought Tyson Fury by the way before and almost beat him, so I think that's no easy path for Whyte to get through, but I think he will do it, and he will fight Tyson Fury next. Fury will win that fight. Usyk and Joshua will fight again. I think Joshua will lose again, and either Usyk will fight Fury or Joshua will fight Wilder. But of course there's the option about what will happen with Joseph Parker and Andy Ruiz, Luis Ortiz, Derek Chisora, and among other names as well. You know, it's very up in the air, but I think with the heavyweight division we just need to have one champion, and that's why I think we still want that unification bout between, at the moment, Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. But the fight itself, Wilder Fury 3, was probably the most intense, the most exciting, the most dramatic, and the most significant fight I probably ever sat through in my entire life. Even Tyson Fury's backstory now inspires me, it really does, and he does prove that, you know, you can get knocked down, literally, as he has in the ring, and you can come back and you can be a role model to your family, and you can be, you know, whoever you want to be in your life. And that's exactly what Tyson Fury has showed through boxing. And I think boxing is a significant example, because of course the whole point of boxing is to hit and not get hit, and to knock someone down and not be knocked down. In many ways, the trilogy fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder is a lot like a Hollywood movie, and in fact I actually wouldn't be surprised if Amazon or Netflix actually conjured up a trilogy of movies or created a TV series around the rivalry between them. The story, the rivalry, the anticipation, and the backstory of both fighters will go down in history among the greatest heavyweight boxing rivalries of all time. You know, it's right up there with like Ali and Frazier, and Foreman and Ali, and Lewis and Tyson and Holyfield and Lewis. There's so many strands to this rivalry that have really typified everything that people love about boxing. And to be honest, they need to round it off here now. They need to move on, fight somebody else, and see where they go from there, really. I think Fury needs a few more opponents to fight. I think Wilder needs to come back against someone relatively elite like Anthony Joshua, maybe Andy Ruiz. So I think the options are there for Deontay Wilder to come back. But I think to sum it up, we saw that Wilder was probably at his best ever in terms of his technical ability as a boxer, but it was also his worst because he got knocked out. And it was the very first time that it had happened in his entire career. Whereas with Tyson Fury, it wasn't his best technically as a boxer, it was the fight that really defined his character, and the fact that he had to really dig deep to come back, especially when he took Wilder down the first time. He came off the canvas twice, to go on and win the fight. So I think his character was probably the best that we've ever seen him, despite not having the best technical performance. So what did you think of the fight last night? Were you as nervous as I was? Were you shaking? Do you find that Tyson Fury has cemented his place among the best heavyweights of all time? Where do you think Wilder will go next? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you did want to enjoy this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell tick so you're notified when I upload a new video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, everybody.